So the very first place to start is, does the IV do well in the first stage? That is is the instrument correlated with the treatment? If it's highly correlated, good. If it's lowly correlated. If the correlation is small, you may have problems with bias in the second stage. There's one rule of thumb that says for a single endogenous regressor with a single instrument, S-statistic should be at least 10. It's a rule of thumb, it's not a proof. So that's a function of how big your data set is and how strong the correlation is. Second main issue is the exclusion restriction credible? That is it the case that physician lab drug-eluting stent use is not correlated with total charges except through whether or not the patient got a drug-eluting stent? Is there some other avenue by which the instrument is influencing the outcome? The only way to test this is if you have multiple instruments and compare them. And so the best thing is if you have multiple instruments, you compare them and you get the same results, then you're in good shape. If you get multiple instruments and they're different, then you don't know whether the instruments are not in agreement because they're revealing different information, different local average treatment effects, or because one's good and one's bad, or they're both bad. And so you need to have, again, you're still stuck in this area of appealing to, well, this is a really good instrument because these reasons that I have to explain to you and not because it's patently obvious. And the last issue is, what is the local area treatment effect that's being estimated? That, from a rhetorical perspective, who cares about this one? If it's regional treatment effects, like regional treatment rates, who cares? Is that relevant to any, what's the policy question that that's relevant to? And/or are there other IVs that might yield different or somehow better, more interesting local average treatment effects? And then a reminder of all the problems with instrumental variables, even though it's our last best hope for causality in secondary data. It's got a number of problems. One, small sample properties are not great. They lead to biased estimators. So you need lots of data. Second, you're going to get less precise estimates, and that's particularly true if you have low correlation between the instrument and the treatment. So you want something that's strongly correlated with the treatment, but not perfectly correlated with the treatment. Or if it's perfectly correlated with the treatment, that's got the same problems as the treatment has. You can never prove the exogeneity of your instruments. That is, you can never say that there isn't some other, you've ruled out all possible other pathways. You can make arguments about it, but you can't prove it. Your results are only applicable to the local average treatment effect, that is the marginal subsample of patients that are being affected by the variation in your instrument. And pragmatically, instrumental variables can be difficult to explain, and in particular to a clinical audience. Like JAMA, great. There are enough people, sophisticated readers of JAMA, who can, if they got the right reviewers and they're able to get it. You go to a provincial specialty journal somewhere, they're like, instrumental variables. Now maybe they're like really excited about it because they've heard about it in the big city, or maybe they're like, our readers don't know instrumental variables from our elbows, and get that out of my house kind of thing. So there's a market for instrumental variables analysis. And if you go to an economics journal or increasingly health services research journals, you can say, okay, I have an instrumental variable, but what's novel about this? Is it a new instrument? Is it a clever application? What's the hook here? And it's just like, oh, I did an instrumental variable, and I got a different result. Is the question itself of interest? So HSR journals might be interested in the methods, clinical journals might be interested in the question. Where's that sweet spot of journals that are both, they kind of like get the methods and also interested in the question. And the reality is, it's hard to find good instruments. I didn't talk about it as much. There's some notes about this in the slides. If you have multiple endogenous regressors, it can get messy. So you need, at least the one takeaway is if you have, try to look at multiple endogenous regressions. So I'm doing a paper looking at both the impact on physician prescribing of both pharmaceutical promotion by pharmaceutical firms and also on the other side, insurance design, benefit design on a single physician's decisions to prescribe stuff. And so this whole randomized trial, we have we have both detailing and samples, for example, are both endogenous. So there are two different policies that a pharmaceutical firm might engage in to influence physician prescribing. we have to figure out how to either combine them or get separate instruments. We need at least one instrument for every endogenous regressor, for each endogenous regressor. That's a little bit on the side. All right, so that's my 160-minute crash course on instrumental variables. Some of you may walk out of here thinking, I will never, ever, 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 ever use an instrumental variable. And that's fine, but at least remember, we got to think about the context of the research proposal, that we're going after causality, and instrumental variables is one way to go after causality. So I want you to at least think about how it might be useful. Any of these methods might be useful. You don't have to use instrumental variables, but it is a good way to do it. And I will say that I've been involved in grant applications where someone just says, we put it in the grant, and the committee wanted us to go, was worried about, all we did was descriptive stuff, and they wanted us to go after a causal question, because causal questions are actually, can you come up with an instrumental variables analysis for us? The hard part with instrumental variables analysis is really not the methods, although they're not trivial, but what am I going to instrument with? And sometimes you see papers where people say, well, we'd love to have this, we acknowledge these are flawed, we'd love to have this, but we're aware of no good instrument that's going to get us the answer. That's it's okay, but it's not as good as the guy who comes up with, but wait, here's the instrument. So it's just you don't want to spend too much time dreaming of the perfect instrument. But if you can come up with one, I wonder about that, it may be worth thinking it through and proposing it and saying, well, why this might not be such a good instrument, but hell, I did the analysis anyway. So don't be scared of instrumental variables, but don't love them too much either. It's it's a tool, like anything, it can be used for good or evil, and hopefully you'll use them for good. All right, I'm done yapping. Have a good spring break. I'll see you guys back afterwards, and I can't remember who our first guest lecturer is, but